Good afternoon. It's 1 p.m. here in Kenya's capital, Nairobi, and this is The Ambassador, where we debunk global diplomacy and geopolitics. I am your ambassador, Paul Madenge. Now let's kick off what's happening. Nigeria's oil industry is in the spotlight as President Bola Tinubu takes bold steps to revive a sector critical to the nation's economy. With production at historic lows and fuel prices on the rise, the president has launched sweeping reforms, including a shake-up at the top of the state oil economy and a key policy shift amid at boosting local refining.
Nigeria President Bola Tinubu is pushing bold reforms to rescue the country's struggling oil sector following record low production and falling crude prices triggered by new U.S. tariffs. He recently dismissed 11 top officials at the state oil company NNPC and reaffirmed a key policy allowing local refineries to buy crude oil in Nigerian naira to boost domestic refining and cut dollar dependency. The move comes after a dispute with billionaire Aliko Dangote, whose Lagos refinery posed local fuel sales over dollar payment demands, causing a sharp spike in gasoline prices. By reintroducing naira-based crude oil sales, the government aims to stabilize fuel supply and prices. Tinubu is signaling a fresh start, seeking to rebuild credibility in a sector marred by corruption and inefficiency. Elvin Muyodi, GBS News.
Now, officials in Santo Domingo are still struggling to identify the victims of Tuesday night's catastrophic nightclub roof collapse as the death toll rises to 221, with hundreds more injured. The tragedy at the iconic Jet Set Club has left families searching for answers and a nation in mourning. As our recovery efforts continue, tributes are pouring in for the lives lost, including beloved merengue singer Ruby Perez and former MLB star Octavio Dotel, and Dominicans gathered to honor their memories in the face of overwhelming grief.
Struggling to identify the victims of the tragedy in Santo Domingo, where the roof of the iconic Jet Set nightclub collapsed on Tuesday. The confirmed death toll has now surged to 221, with hundreds more injured. Outside the city morgue, desperate families have gathered for days, hoping to identify their loved ones as officials describe the physical features of the deceased to aid the process. Among the confirmed victims is Octavio Dotel, a former Major League Baseball pitcher who won a World Series with the St. Louis Cardinals. He was 51 and had returned to his native Dominican Republic to attend the concert. Also among the dead was renowned merengue singer Ruby, who was performing when the roof collapsed. His death has deeply shaken the nation's music community, with thousands gathered at the Eduardo Brito National Theatre to honor his legacy with a public tribute, attended by fans, artists, and cultural leaders. As investigations into the cause of the collapse continue, the Dominican Republic faces a period of profound grief, not only for the staggering number of lives lost, but for the cultural icons taken too soon. Teresa Tiengo, GBS News.
The government of Zimbabwe have announced an initial compensation of United States $3 million for white farmers whose property were taken under a contentious government initiative over 20 years ago. Let's take a listen.
This is the first payment under the 2020 compensation agreement, where Zimbabwe had promised to pay a total of $3.5 billion for the confiscated farmland. Between the year 2000 and 2001, thousands of white farmers were forcibly removed from their land, often through violent means. While the land seizures aimed to rectify historical injustices from the colonial period, they ultimately contributed to the nation's economic downturn and strained relations with Western countries. The payment announced on Wednesday will address the first 378 farms out of a total of 740 that have received approval for compensation and is 1% of the overall $311 million allocated for the initial payments. In the year 2000, then President Robert Mugabe endorsed land invasions carried out by government forces and vigilante groups, leading to widespread international criticism. President Emmerson Mnangagwa, who succeeded Mugabe after the coup in 2017, has been working to rebuild relationships with Western nations. This is Jeff Abuki, GBS TV News.
A tragic helicopter crash in New York City's Hudson River has claimed the lives of all 6 people aboard, including 3 children. The Bell 206, which had just taken off for a sightseeing tour, lost control shortly after departing and crashed near Lower Manhattan. Emergency responders quickly arrived at the scene, but despite their efforts, none of the victims survived.
A tragic helicopter crash in New York City has left 6 people dead, including 3 children. The accident occurred on Thursday afternoon when a tour helicopter plunged into the Hudson River. New York City Mayor Eric Adams confirmed the fatalities, stating that all 6 individuals on board were killed. Among the victims were a family visiting from Spain and the pilot of the aircraft.
The pilot and the family visited from Spain with our preliminary information as at this time. Members of the FDNY and NYPD harbor units arrived at the scene, and divers from both agencies entered the water. At this time, all 6 victims have been removed from the water, and sadly, all 6 victims have been pronounced deceased.
Authorities said the helicopter, identified as Bell 206, departed around 3 p.m. on a routine sightseeing tour. Shortly after takeoff, the aircraft lost control and crashed into the river, landing upside down in the water. Emergency responders arrived at the scene with divers carrying out rescue efforts. Despite immediate attempts to resuscitate the victims, 4 were pronounced dead at the scene, while the other 2 later succumbed from their injuries.
Immediate life-saving measures were undertaken on the vessels at the scene, as well as the adjoining pier. 4 victims were pronounced dead on scene, and 2 more were removed to local area hospitals, where sadly both succumbed to their injuries.
The Federal Aviation Administration and the National Transportation Safety Board have launched a joint investigation to determine what caused the crash. Teresa Tiengo, GBS News.
The ambassador will take a short break. We'll be right back with more as we debunk global diplomacy and geopolitics.
Are you all happy to see me? Yes! I'm also very happy to see you. I'm going to make, ta-da, a banana milk package. Friends, now we're done with the banana milk package.
My name is Tracy Otonde. I'm Miss County Nairobi and I'm also Miss Embakasi East. Modeling is an art by virtue of the model and by virtue of the designers. That's if we look at modeling in terms of pageantry, you're showcasing yourself. You yourself is a work of art. You're a work of art and you're showcasing everything that's in you and within you. And by virtue of the designer is because you keep showcasing the attires that they're made for you. And you have to look the part for you to be able to showcase what the designer was picturing. So yeah, modeling is an art.
Everywhere, GBS.
Welcome back to the Ambassador as we break down the developments for you and get the bigger picture on what's happening globally. Now, the ongoing conflict in Gaza has led to an alarming rise in the number of amputations, with the United Nations estimating 4,700 new cases since the war began, as hospitals and medical facilities struggle to cope with the overwhelming number of casualties. Access to prosthetics and essential medical care remains severely restricted. Many victims, including children, face uncertain future, while aid efforts are complicated by the blockade on Gaza. Here is more on the scene.
Farah, a 21-year-old from Gaza, is among the thousands who have been left physically and emotionally scarred by the conflict. Once aspiring to become a teacher, Farah lost her leg in an Israeli airstrike in 2023. Now living in a temporary shelter and awaiting a prosthetic limb, her dreams of attending university and teaching have been dashed.
I wish I could go back to my normal life before. Work, live my life and complete my studies. I wish I could get a prosthetic limb and go back to my working life.
Like many others, she faces a grim reality where the prospects of receiving proper medical care, including the vital prosthetics, are uncertain. The situation has grown even more dire due to the collapse of ceasefires and the suspensions of humanitarian aid, exacerbating the challenge of providing necessary support to those in need. The Red Cross and the United Nations have reported that more than 4,500 new amputees in Gaza urgently require prosthetics.
I was playing at my home and my father told me, "Come on, let's go out for a walk." We went out and the shelling started falling on us like rains. I got a shell on my leg and my father got a shell on his shoulder.
The situation in Gaza paints a bleak picture of the human cost of war. The psychological and physical scars of this conflict will continue to affect generations to come. This is Abdi Hamid Ali, GBS News.
Panamanian President Jose Raul Mulino has rejected the idea of establishing military bases in Panama, a potential plan that has been floated by Pentagon Chief Pete Hegseth has floated during a visit to the Central American country. During the Central American Security Conference in Panama City, Hegseth proposed establishing a United States military bases in Panama, although he stated that such deployment would happen with the consent of Panamanian government. The Panamanian government asked the United States to update the English version of a joint communique on a Panama Canal in which the word sovereignty was removed from the Spanish version. following a visit by United States Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth to the Central American country. Panama said the United States has since recognized its sovereignty over the Panama Canal, despite tough rhetoric from Washington, as the two nations announced agreements to deepen United States military training in the Central American nation. The issue of sovereignty over the Panama Canal has generated tensions between the two countries since Donald Trump's arrival in the White House last January. The United States president has reiterated that the canal is being controlled by China and that his country is paying an excessive price for the use of Panama Canal. Iran has expressed a willingness to approach talks with the United States over its nuclear program with an open mind. The announcement came today from Iran's foreign minister spokesperson, who framed the upcoming discussions as, and I quote, genuine chance, end of quote. This comes after United States President Donald Trump unexpected revelation earlier this week that United States and Iran would begin direct talks in Oman this Saturday. Abdi Hamid Ali has more.
This week, tensions between the US and Iran have reached new heights. President Trump announced that the United States and Iran were set to engage in direct negotiations in Oman, focused on Iran's nuclear program. While the talks are set to begin this Saturday, the timing and format of this discussion remains unknown. Iran initially indicated that the talks will be indirect, with Oman playing the role of mediator, but Trump's statement suggested otherwise.
We're having direct talks with Iran, and they've started. It'll go on Saturday. We have a very big meeting, and we'll see what can happen. And I think everybody agrees that doing a deal would be preferable to doing the obvious. And the obvious is not something that I want to be involved with, or frankly, that Israel wants to be involved with. I think if the talks aren't successful with Iran, I think Iran is going to be in great danger. And I hate to say it, great danger, because they can't have a nuclear weapon.
Iran has insisted that it will not be coerced into negotiations and will closely evaluate the U.S. intentions during the talks. Yesterday, the U.S. moved its B-2 bombers, one of the most powerful aircraft that can bomb underground facilities, in the island of Diego Garcia, located in the island of Indian Ocean. It is speculated that the bombs might be used to target Iran's nuclear facilities. However, reports have emerged that Iran plans to move their nuclear energy programs into an undisclosed location as a method of deterring the U.S. from attacking them. Yesterday, Iran expelled UN inspectors from its nuclear facility. U.S. State spokesperson Tammy Bruce has warned Iran for their actions.
Also, expelling IAEA inspectors from Iran would be an escalation and a miscalculation on Iran's part. The United States remains deeply concerned that Iran is amassing a growing stockpile of highly enriched uranium for which there is no credible, peaceful purpose. Iran is the only non-nuclear weapon state producing highly enriched uranium.
Both Iran and the United States have historically maintained a hostile relationship, and a single round of talks is unlikely to resolve decades of distrust and diplomatic rifts. Tomorrow's meeting may forever change the future of Middle Eastern affairs. This is Abdi Hamid Ali, GBS News.
And Queen Camilla of the United Kingdom today concluded the 4-day state visit to Italy and left for home. The visit aimed at strengthening strong diplomatic ties between the United Kingdom and Italy, and it featured several notable moments. Our very own GBS reporter Victor Udun gives us a brief and a detailed account of all the majestic royal families for days state visit to Italy. And now we will bring more story on that, development story on that story. But now we have come to the end of this bulletin. That's all for today. With me, your Ambassador Paul Madenge on the Ambassador 1 p.m. Follow all of our stories at GBS TV is updated through the day. This is where we debunk global diplomacy and geopolitics. Good afternoon.